This video will explore the story of John Wayne Gacy from his rise to power to his eventual downfall. It will explore the details of the crimes he committed, the investigation into his activities, and the final result of his trial. It will also look at the impact his crimes had on the community and the lasting legacy of one of America's most notorious serial killers. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. He was the second of 3 children born to John Stanley Gacy, Sr. and Marion Elaine Robinson Gacy. Gacy's father was an alcoholic who was physically and emotionally abusive towards his family, and Gacy's childhood was marked by turmoil and dysfunction. Gacy's parents divorced when he was young, and he and his siblings were raised by their mother and their maternal grandparents. Despite this, Gacy continued to have a troubled relationship with his father and struggled to live up to his expectations. As a child, Gacy struggled in school and was often bullied by his peers. He also had several health issues, including a heart condition that required him to undergo several surgeries. Despite these challenges, Gacy was a high-energy and outgoing child, and he was involved in various activities and clubs throughout his childhood, including the Boy Scouts of America and the YMCA. He was also an avid reader and enjoyed spending time with his friends and family. In his teenage years, Gacy's behavior became more problematic, and he was arrested for the first time at the age of 18 for stealing a car. He later dropped out of high school and worked a series of odd jobs before eventually starting his own construction business. It was around this time that Gacy began to exhibit signs of the violent and depraved behavior that would eventually lead to his downfall. In 1964, Gacy married his first wife, Marlon Myers. The couple had 2 children together, but their marriage was strained due to Gacy's infidelities and his volatile behavior. They eventually divorced in 1967. In 1971, Gacy married his second wife, Carol Hoff. The couple had a tumultuous relationship, and Gacy was arrested several times for assaulting Hoff and threatening her with violence. Despite this, Hoff remained with Gacy until his arrest in 1978. The story we all know begins in Chicago, Illinois in 1972. Gacy was a successful and well-respected member of the community, owning a construction business and taking part in various charity work. However, little did anyone know of the sinister activities he was hiding. Gacy was known to have a number of young male employees and acquaintances, and it was through these relationships that he was able to lure many of his victims to his home. Gacy would lure young men and boys to his home in the guise of offering them jobs or simply conversing with them. Gacy had a special room in his house specifically for these crimes, which he referred to as his rape room. It wasn't until 1978 that Gacy's reign of terror came to an end, after a young man named Jeffrey Rignall reported him to the police. Rignall had been drugged and sexually assaulted by Gacy and was able to provide authorities with enough evidence to launch an investigation. Gacy disposed of the bodies of many of his victims by burying them in the crawl space beneath his home. He also disposed of some bodies in the Des Plaines River, which was near his house. One of John Wayne Gacy's victims was Robert Jerome Peast, a 15-year-old boy who lived in Des Plaines, Illinois. On December 11, 1978, Robert's mother allowed him to take a break from his job at a local pharmacy to follow Gacy, who had offered him a job paying $4 an hour. At the time, Gacy was known in the area for his work as a contractor and for entertaining children as Pogo the Clown. Robert had told his mother he was going to talk to Gacy about a job, but he would never return. The police first suspected Gacy of foul play in the disappearance of Robert Peast when his mother told them that Gacy had offered her son a job. After searching Gacy's house and car, they still had no evidence that he was involved in Robert's disappearance. On December 21, 1978, the police finally found evidence linking Gacy to the disappearance of Robert Peast. They discovered a jacket in Gacy's bedroom that had been identified as belonging to Robert. They also found a receipt for a roll of film that had been purchased at the pharmacy where Robert worked. The police arrested Gacy on December 22, 1978. During his interrogation, Gacy eventually confessed to the murder of Robert Peast and the murder of at least 30 other young men and boys. He described how he lured Robert to his house and strangled him with a rope. He then buried Robert's body in the crawl space of his home. Robert's body was eventually found in the crawl space of Gacy's home, along with the bodies of many of Gacy's other victims. Gacy was convicted of 33 counts of murder and was sentenced to death. He was executed on May 10, 1994. Robert's family was left devastated by his death, and his mother was vocal about her grief and anger. She told reporters, "It's hard to believe that this monster was walking around and nobody knew what he was doing. He was living a lie and it cost my son his life." Gacy was eventually arrested and tried for his crimes. The investigation into Gacy's activities was a complex and difficult one, as the police faced numerous challenges in trying to uncover the truth about what had happened to the missing young men and boys. Despite these challenges, the detectives and officers involved in the case worked tirelessly to bring Gacy to justice, and they eventually gathered enough evidence to charge him with the murders. During his trial, Gacy maintained his innocence, claiming that he had been framed for the crimes by the police. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was found guilty on all 33 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Gacy's crimes and trial had a significant impact on the community, as people struggled to come to terms with the fact that such a heinous and brutal series of murders could have been committed by someone who was so well respected and seemingly normal. Many of the victims' families were left to grieve and try to come to terms with the loss of their loved ones, and the community as a whole was left to grapple with the trauma and horror of what had happened. Despite his conviction, Gacy continued to claim that he was innocent and that he had been the victim of a conspiracy. He spent the rest of his days in prison, where he was executed in 1994. His legacy, however, lives on as one of the most notorious and chilling cases in American criminal history.
Thank you for watching the Case Closed YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any uploads.